Hej och välkomna tillbaka allihopa. Mats Hård heter jag. Jag kommer vara eran moderator här under eftermiddagen fram till klockan 18 då en annan Mats Ekberg ska ta över. Jag är till vardags vd och chefredaktör för en nyhetstjänst som heter Finwire som jag tror ni alla har följt på ett eller annat sätt. Vi har Jack här på scen. Vi ska dra igång programmet under eftermiddagen. Jag vill så här formaliamässigt också säga att har man några frågor så kommer jag under frågestunden inte skicka ut den till er här. Utan jag ber er, både ni som sitter här i lokalen och ni som följer det digitalt, att ni skickar in frågor via sms. Ja, tack så mycket. Welcome, Jack.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the introduction. So again, my name is Jack Egelund Madsen. I'm the CEO of Diagonal Bio, a company that has come a very long way in a very short time. The company was founded in 2020. We went on the stock exchange to Nasdaq First North in July last year, and already this year we are planning to initiate our commercial activities. So it's been quite an exciting journey, and now I will start out. So first of all, if I showed you this picture 5 years ago, not many of you would have been able to tell me what this is. Today, I'm sure it brings a lot of negative feelings. And yes, this is of course COVID. According to WHO, there has been more than 500 million confirmed cases of COVID, and more than 6 million people have died with COVID. This is clearly the health crisis of our times. But COVID is not alone. There are many other viruses or bacteria that is able to infect humans. I listed some of them here. Anything from COVID, it could be Ebola, extremely deadly, anthrax, antibiotic resistance. There are many different bacteria that can affect humans. This is a quote from the high-impact journal Nature, stating that every single time we have an outbreak, we are always one step behind and that we do not have rapid diagnostics to detect a new organism. That has been painfully evident during the COVID-19 crisis. It's been pretty clear that the world needs better diagnostics. And that's actually why I'm standing here today. To tell you about Diagonal Bio's first product. We call it PanViral. PanViral has the potential to be the fastest, most accurate, easy to use, universal diagnostic platform for testing of any type of infectious disease pathogen. So let me introduce PanViral. PanViral is a small portable box. I actually have a small model of it right here. So basically half the size of a laptop, but of course it has more depth. It detects genetic material in real time using a simple one-step assay, essentially bringing the gold standard of diagnostics to point of care or near patient testing, enabling rapid disease testing beyond the confines of labs and hospitals. So how does it actually work? There will be, of course, an easy-to-use touchscreen. I actually have a model of it here, so I can show you if there's anybody interested in the audience, you can come up afterwards. This will be the actual screen that goes into the device. Then we have the drawer, as you can see on the picture here. It fits a panel of 8 different tubes. And that means we can scan for 8 different infectious diseases or 8 patients at the same time. Let me show you how it works in a movie. Oh, sorry, this is just the screen. But again, you can come up here and touch it after the presentation. I have a small movie explaining how PanViral works. Again, small portable box, easy to use touchscreen. We have these 8 channels, which means we can scan for 8 different infections at the same time, or 8 patients. In each of these channels, we also have specific enzymes and primers who can detect specific infectious diseases. If they find this one, they will amplify it exponentially. Then we have a sensor dipped into the solution, which means we can take this very early on and very precisely. And again, we can detect 8 simultaneously or in parallel. Why is this important? If you look at diagnostic testing today, then most of these are diagnosed specific. You have probably all tried this with COVID. If you have flu symptoms, you would go to the test center and then you get a yes/no answer whether you had COVID or not. What we can offer with PanViral is that we can make a respiratory panel, for example. This would give us the opportunity to explain to the patient exactly which type of COVID mutation do you have. Do you have influenza A and B, or is it respiratory bacteria? In the same way, we could make a panel for sexually transmitted diseases or antibiotic resistant bacteria. There are many different options with PanViral. It's a universal system. This is just an example of the data that we are getting out when we use PanViral. You can see that it's very accurate and very precise. In the bottom we have negative samples, and on the top here we have positive samples, sample that's positive for COVID. Very clear. But PanViral also enables detection of multiple samples in parallel. This is quite unique. So what is the technology behind PanViral? Why didn't somebody else come up with this idea? First of all, we are using a technology that's called loop-mediated isomeral amplification. It sounds very complicated. Technically, what we're doing is that we are identifying a specific region within these infectious diseases. If it's present in the sample, it will be amplified exponentially. By coupling it to electrochemical sensors, we can detect this very early on and very precisely, as I just showed you in the graph. And of course, this is patent-pending technology, so we handed in a patent application in March 2020. So we did make sure we have this protected. This, of course, makes PanViral extremely unique. There's simply no other system on the market today who offers what we can offer with PanViral. That is, again, the combination of having something that's ultra-fast. We detected COVID samples below 10 minutes, and we can do that with basically any type of infectious disease. We have an accuracy which is in line with the PCR-based technologies today. That is the gold standard of diagnostics today. And then we can also do this where we test multiple samples at the same time. This could either be, as I just showed you, we make a panel and screen one patient for many different diseases at the same time, or we can scan several patients at the same time. This is creating commercial opportunities for PanViral at a global scale. So what are the problems with today's testing? I'm pretty sure all of you here in the audience have tried this before. The PCR testing is accurate, no doubt about it, but it's also time-consuming, expensive, and complicated to run. The best case I've seen is a couple of hours, but in most cases this has taken a couple of days before you get the result. That's not ideal. Of course, there's a solution to that, and that is you can use the quick test, and I'm pretty sure all of you here have also tried this. Very easy to use, you get the results very quickly. They are cost efficient. Unfortunately, they're not very reliable. There was a study done from Statens Serum Institute in Denmark, released in the summer last year, on COVID. And in that study, more than 4,000 positive COVID samples detected by PCR was also detected using the quick test. But in that case, only around 2,000 was detected correctly positive. Others have shown similar results. Again, this is not ideal. This means either you get a false diagnosis or late diagnosis. If you look more general in the diagnostic space today, then the problem with these things is that these diagnostic solutions are often outsourced to external laboratories. That means long response times. In this case here, we have a young girl waiting for the answers for a sexually transmitted disease test. That creates a lot of anxiety. Again, we all know this. If you go to the medical doctor, you want the answer immediately. We don't want to sit and wait. It could also be delay in treatment. If you don't get the diagnosis early on, or the right diagnosis, you will be treated with delay. In worst cases, that means that the patient will die. Or you have unnecessary complication or prolonged recovery time. And of course, if you don't catch the diagnosis immediately, then there's a big chance that you will spread the infections. I have a business background from Copenhagen University, but I also have a technical background with a PhD in biotechnology, and have been working several years as an associate professor at Copenhagen University. They found one study that was published between Howard and Ohio University. This is some of the data, and I will break that down even further. But this illustrates this very, very clearly, what I just said. In this case, if you don't do any testing at all, and by the way, this was done on COVID samples or COVID patients. If you don't do any testing at all, you will have 100% spread of the disease into this group. Then you can, of course, increase frequency for when you test. But what you can see here is that even if you test every 3 days, if it takes more than 2 hours until you get the result when you're sitting at the test facility, then you can have up to 45% spread of the disease into the group. If you, however, can test in real time, that means immediately when you're sitting at the test facility, then you can limit the spread of infections to almost 0. And that's exactly what we can offer with PanViral. PanViral enables detection of infectious diseases in real time. This means that PanViral can speed up the diagnostic process directly near the patient without compromising accuracy and sensitivity, which is otherwise you can say the case as with the quick tests. This means quick and accurate diagnosis, early treatment, and we can limit the spread of infections because we can isolate the patients earlier. Of course, there's a huge market within diagnostics today. And actually, if you look at it under the COVID situation here, under the COVID crisis, it was valued at around $34 billion. I'm quite sure now with all the precautions that the governments are taking, the healthcare system, that this number is going to go significantly up. And if you look into the market today, then it's dominated by the quick tests because they are so easy to use. Unfortunately, they are not very accurate. Then we have what we call the gold standard of diagnostic testing today, and that's the PCR-based technologies. They're accurate, but again, unfortunately, they are very time-consuming, costly. And then, of course, there's many other competing technologies out there. I just wrote CRISPR on this one because it's a very capable technology, but it's also very complex, costly, and time-consuming. So what are the different markets where we see a fit with PanViral? The first one that I want to talk about here is to do regional specific infectious disease panels. I already explained this one with the respiratory panel when you come to the fall. Instead of getting these binary answers, yes, no, you have COVID, we will be able to give you a full overview of what it is that you have, whether it's COVID, which type of COVID, influenza A and B, or respiratory bacteria. But again, it could vary from region to region, depending on where you are in the world. The second one I want to talk about here is that we could use PanViral as an outbreak system. Because we have very high sensitivity with PanViral, we would be able to detect the presence of infections even before you see symptoms. You can imagine that governments would use the system to take samples from the population to get an idea of what's happening. Could also be that you would be tested before leaving a high risk area. So let's say that you have an outbreak of Ebola somewhere in Africa. Before you're allowed to board the plane, you could get tested with PanViral. There are many different options. The last one I want to talk about here today is that we use PanViral for monitoring disease treatment directly at the hospitals. Because of these real-time capabilities, we will be able to provide answers to the medical staff immediately. And of course, ensure that they get the right treatment to the patient, also for the benefit of the patient. So how do we plan to go to market with PanViral? This is pretty standard within this diagnostic area. We have this nice little box, PanViral. This is a universal system. We can use it for essentially everything. Together with that, you need panels. And actually, this is like a small kit. So as you can see also on the picture here, we have these 8 tubes. They also contain a sensor. And that's a one-time use only component. Together with that, you need specific buffers for individual infectious diseases. Those will be the main driver of the revenue. And because we have a universal system here, that means depending on which disease segment we go into, we can have differentiated pricing strategies. That's huge beneficial for the company. Then you're thinking, okay, so how are you going to get PanViral to market quickly? There's multiple routes, and we are looking into all of them. The first one I want to discuss here today is that to get panviral manufactured as a research use only device. There are several benefits for this. First of all, the faster we get this neat little box manufactured, the faster we can start to do testing. But not only that, there's a possibility that we can go to the US market early on, under what's called an EUA, Emergency Use Approval. The reason for that is that we can test some of the most deadly diseases with panviral. COVID is one of them. Ebola could be another one. Of course, we will also look into alternative routes that could be the Middle East or Far East, where the regulatory requirements are not as high as it will be in the rest of Europe. And at the same time, we will continue to build our technical file to ensure we can get CE marking of panviral under the IVDR regulation to market it in Europe. And to stress this out again, to get panviral to market quickly will enable us to initiate our commercial activities. It will also mean that we can start partnering with infectious disease clinics and key opinion leaders. So we can start to generate scientific data we can use later on also in our technical application. So not long ago, we sent out milestones for 2022 and also 2023. And it's not because I want to go through all the details of all of this. What I want to say is that the primary focus for the company right now is to ensure we get panviral manufactured as a research use only device. This is absolutely key, as this will enable us to initiate our commercial activities. All of this is, of course, only possible because we have a very strong team behind us. So beside me in the management, we also have Per Hender, who is an experienced CFO for other listed companies. We have one of the co-founders as the Chief Scientific Officer, Andreas Nyberg. And then, of course, we have a very strong operational team who's working hard every single day to ensure we get panviral to market as quickly as possible. And we are, of course, supported by a very professional and dedicated board. So with that, I would like to wrap up by saying that our vision is to limit the spread of infectious disease worldwide by creating an easy-to-use, accurate, cost-efficient, universal diagnostic platform for testing of any type of infectious disease pathogen. It's been quite a remarkable journey so far, and I welcome all of you to follow us in the very important next steps. So with that, I would like to say thank you for listening, and I will be happy to take some questions.
Thank you, Jack. I will just remind the audience. Om ni vill ha några frågor till Jack så skicka in detta via sms. Så ombesörjer vi det här på scen. Thank you for an interesting presentation. I think I'll go off with the commercial parts. How will you sell this when you will start selling it?
You can say in the initial phase, what we want to do is to have it as a research use only device.
Okay.
That will probably make it possible for us to engage into these partnership collaborations. We already have contacts at the infectious disease clinics and other key opinion leaders.
Okay.
This will enable us to generate, you can say, scientific data and proof. And I think this is going to be a very important step in our commercialization strategy. Because until we have something that can actually back up what I'm actually telling you here today, it's going to be difficult to ask people to actually spend a lot of money on the device.
Yeah, I know a lot of companies like yours that talk a lot about key opinion leaders is important for the rollout of the product in the future. Where are you in that process? Do you think good key opinion leaders, or do you need more research to get more people to approve your product?
I think it's important for us to go out so we can have it standing at the infectious disease clinics, maybe the general practitioner's office, and some places where you are taking samples already, so we can see these studies comparison to what's the, you can say, how are we on accuracy compared to the PCR data, how are we on the speed, and all of these things that I've been telling you here today. Getting somebody else to endorse the device is going to be very important.
Yeah, okay. So that is something, if you're interested in your company, you should keep your eyes on what's happening in that end.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
How much is in your control when it comes to develop the product to a commercial phase, you think?
We have a very good control.
Yeah.
So right now we are working with a company in Malmö. We have the headquarters in Lund, and we can be there on a daily basis as it's required. So we have very good control of the manufacturing.
Yeah. I think finally we lifted all the restrictions all over the world almost, except for China maybe. Has that affected any interest for this product, or for your technology or your research?
No, because I would also like to stress out we were never another COVID testing company. That was never the idea.
No.
We of course have used COVID in some of the development steps here because it makes it very easy to everybody to understand. Everybody here have done a PCR test and everybody have tried the quick tests. So everybody knows exactly what we're talking about. And that of course has been a huge benefit for us. But we are not going exclusively into the COVID area. That's not the idea.
So you will have different phases, right? When one phase is when you will start selling your product to research centers and to get it approved, right? How many years do you think until I get this when I go to my doctor?
Since we are a listed company on the stock exchange, there are certain things I'm not allowed to say, and then you will come back later on to haunt me. So unfortunately, I cannot disclose that.
No, of course.
At this stage, at least.
No. But still, yet you develop it and you will start selling it to different research centers.
What I can say is what's also in our milestones, and that is that we plan to initiate our commercial activities this year.
Yeah, I read that. And when you start that, is it like selling the device, or will you get continuously payment for the usage of your device?
The way that it works is, as I tried to explain, so we use the razor blade model, and that means that you would need to continuously have the supply of these tubes with the sensors inside, because that's one-time use only. And the same with the reaction that you put into these different tubes. That would be pathogen specific or disease specific. Those you would need to continue to buy all along.
Okay, so you will have continuously payment, right?
Yes.
That's very good. And when it comes to you're a listed company, how long is your cash? How long can you live on your cash until we need to make a share issue or find a partner or so on to drive your business further?
What we have said also during Easter is that we see a capital need for additional 50 million at some stage.
Yeah, okay.
It's not right now.
No.
But more details I cannot really go into. The financial reports are already out there as well. And of course you can look at the current burn rate and then you can estimate how long we will have money.
Yeah, I read. When it comes to partners, I think everyone is curious about that. What kind of partner do you see for a product like this in the future? Is it a company that can commercialize it, another diagnostic firm, or what do you see?
Yeah, so if you look one step further, then you can say it's for the initial partnering with key opinion leaders. Then of course the whole idea is to find somebody who already have the channels for distribution, for example. Okay. So we don't have to build that up entirely in the company. So find one of the big players who already have the contacts, the network, to get it out there in a big way. That would be important for us.
Yeah, so you don't see, I mean, we have several listed companies, medtech companies, for instance, and they often use partnerships with distribution partners and agents and resellers in different way to commercialize their product. You don't see that in the future for you guys, or?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying, Egelund. So we don't plan to build everything up in-house. No. That's not the idea. No. We would need to do partnerships with somebody who already have the channels set up, basically.
Yes, I understand. I'm probably when it comes to English, you probably misunderstand each other. What I mean is, you can either work with one major partner, like General Electric or whatever, or you can work with several different resellers and partners to distribute your.
Okay. I get
that's what I mean.
Okay, I get your question.
So we understand your view of the market, how you will commercialize. If it's, do you think you need another big company, diagnostic firm, to sell your products, or several small players that can carry your?
What I can say is that, of course, we have been talking to different distributors at this moment. But I will also say that we are in a stage where we are, of course, open for dialogue. And of course, if the right opportunity arises, then we will look into that when it comes.
Yeah, I understand. Jag vill påminna alla, ni får gärna skicka in frågor om ni har det. I mean, the next couple of months, what should we expect from you guys in the news flow?
The primary focus, as I said, is to actually get Panviral manufactured as soon as possible. So that is what we are working on very hard inside the company. I will not give you a specific timeline, but of course, to initiate our commercial activity this year, this is of course where we have our focus.
I think we write a lot about disturbance in the supply chain and stuff like that. Do you see any risk for your production?
Not at this stage. We did take precautions and make sure we had, you can say, we get enough supply so we can start the initial manufacturing. So that should not be an issue, not at this stage at least.
When it comes to protection of your product, do you have all the patents? I know you mentioned it, but do you still see? Can we expect you to file more patents, or how is the situation?
Of course, we submitted a patent with a priority date in March 2020. And of course, as soon as we go through this process, then at a certain stage we will start to do individual filings in individual countries as well.
Yeah. Okay.
But we need to follow the normal steps.
Yeah, of course. Do you think in the long term will we see more opportunities with this product to diagnose more?
Actually, since Panviral can detect, you can say, genetic material, it doesn't really limit it to infectious disease if you take it one step further. We could also look into the agricultural space or for genetic disorders in humans and stuff like that. But now we are talking, this is not our primary focus as it is right now. But of course, if we are thinking long term.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, of course. I mean, the COVID must have been quite dramatic for also for the industry, I think, to diagnostic firms. How do you see the competition at the moment when it comes to this kind of solutions for the healthcare industry?
There's, of course, as I also mentioned during the presentation, there's a lot of money to be made out there, which of course also attracts a lot of different companies to try to get into that market. We did protect it with a patent application from March 2020, so the technology that we have can at least not be copied directly. But that said, any given segment where there's a lot of money, there will always be a lot of competitors.
Yeah. I have one question from the audience, and that is, what is the biggest risk in the future, do you think, for your company?
That would be like everything else. It could be that there's somebody else coming up with a new invention. I mean, I think it's looking into what's on the market today. I don't see that as something highly plausible. It could also be that the regulatory pathway is going to be more challenging. So the IVDR regulation was just changed. And that means that we talk to the notified bodies, so the ones that actually take care of the registration process, that there can be a backlog. And that could delay things, of course, if you look into the European market. But that's also why we are trying to look into other options, whether we can go to get this emergency use approval in the US, or we could go to the Middle East or Far East. We are looking into all options to make sure that we will not hit a bottleneck.
Okay. Very interesting. Time flies, so we need to move forward. Thank you very much, Jack, for coming here and for your presentation. I think it was really nice to see the product. There's not many companies that bring the product to the table. Thank you.
Thank you.
Applåd.